is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Let's go, baby.
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break.
With Nick Eatman, David Hellman, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Tuesday, November 12th, 2019, Season 15, Episode number 80. Welcome to another edition of The Break. We are live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We've got about 45 minutes to talk about the Cowboys with you guys. Today we're going to talk about levels of concern. Coming off a game like that one that we saw on Sunday, there's a lot of things that you could be concerned about with this team. But I think it's up to us, it's up to this group in here to add some perspective to this conversation of how much should you be concerned about certain things that we saw Sunday, about certain position groups, about particular players that may not have played so well in that game, but is it a real trend or is it something that you're seeing that you think will be a problem as we go forward? So I got my crew here. I got Nick Eatman, Dave Hellman, Danny Surek is joining us today as well. So let's jump right in. Level of concern. It's going to be a rating of 1 to 10, 10 being I am losing my mind concerned with this, 1 being this is not a problem. All right? Let's start first with the offensive line. And I heard you guys actually had some interesting conversation on that yesterday. And so before we get to your levels of concern, why don't you guys give me a little news on what's happening there on the offensive line?
Didn't you take care of that, Nick? you called your shot like Babe frickin' Ruth.
I did.
He always does.
No,
and then later he's like, I didn't know anything.
Yeah, he's like,
I had no idea.
I don't have a source.
Okay.
I don't know anything.
I didn't know anything about an injury to Connor Williams. And as I was telling you this earlier, if he would have had like a soreness in his knee and we'll see he's not going to practice, then it'd be like, all right, they're protecting him and they're trying to start Su'a-Filo. I don't think you have to go under the knife to like prove a point here. So I do think he's got a legitimate injury. Yeah. He's going to have scope on his right knee, I believe.
I don't remember.
No, I think it's
which
left
knee
knee because last year was right.
There we go.
He had the same thing about the same time Su'a-Filo came over and they had a game, 7-game winning streak or whatever. So we'll see if that happens again. But I don't think it was just because of Su'a-Filo.
You've been calling for Su'a-Filo.
I have been, and I think he's a better lineman, and I think the Cowboys think so too. They just didn't draft him.
But as I told you, there are tons of legitimate injuries in that locker room right now that could have surgery or decide not to have surgery. So, I think he's got a legitimate injury. I do wonder, though, if it was kind of like, Connor, you might want to go ahead and get the surgery. Like, let's just go ahead and do the surgery, and you can sit for a few weeks. We got a plan.
I think he's a better lineman right now in his career. I think he gives him a little bit more strength, and we'll see.
Who? You're talking about Su'a-Filo. Yeah.
I was going to say, I wonder, too, how much this decision comes from them liking what Su'a-Filo did last year when he filled in for Williams.
It's got to be a lot
I'm sure that came into, we can go a few weeks out. Su'a-Filo will be ready.
Yeah.
I'm sure that came into play some, too.
Let me put on my draft show hat real quick, and I'm going to defend the guy who I was very excited that they were going to draft. Maybe instead of saying, you know what, Connor, maybe you go get that surgery. Maybe they watched it back and they were like, you know what, you're clearly not right because you would be playing better than this if you were healthy. Because he hasn't been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think he has played as poorly as he did against the Vikings. And so maybe they took a look at it and said,
you're not helping us right now.
You're not going to be effective enough to help us in your current state. So go get this taken care of. Jason Garrett said he doesn't I don't think IR is in consideration. And when you think about how far into the season we are, that I'm interested to see. You don't ever want to put a firm timetable on it just in case, but when he says short term, I assume that means he can be back in 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, Michael Gallup had a situation like this earlier in the season. So
he's a second round pick and a guy that everyone thought might be a first round pick. So you don't you expect him to be a starter, but even if his career is a backup to a lot of spots, that is a valuable position, especially with this line. That's probably not what he wants or what the team wanted, but if he's your swing tackle who also can play guard and all that, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Are you saying that's where he may need to be?
Maybe. I mean, what if Connor McGovern comes back and he's actually really good, and Frederick keeps improving, and they've signed the tackles, and so maybe he's a backup swing tackle, but also has ability to play guard.
Yeah, that's a very valuable person that can do all four of those positions. Yeah,
I mean, we abandoned the whole moving him to right tackle thing because nobody expected Lyle Collins to re-sign, but now that he has. Yeah, and then, McGovern's torn pec has kind of sidelined that conversation as well. But when the offseason gets here, I don't know. It's something to consider. I mean, you would assume Connor Williams is still going to have a leg up just based on multiple years in the strength program, starting experience. Connor McGovern has basically not played a snap of NFL football, not even in practice for the most part. But something to watch.
If we're gonna just start the game, I'll say a 7 for the O-line because I do think they're getting a little bit better here at left guard. But I also think there's also injury concerns to Zach Martin with his elbow, La'el Collins with his back. A couple of things to look at this week. Tyron Smith is coming off one of his worst games we can remember. So Frederick, I don't think played that well either.
Yeah, they got
beat up by the Vikings. Vikings beat them
across the board. It was just not. I mean, it was uncharacteristically bad. Injuries are probably part of that, but Everson Griffin gave Tyron Smith the work. Zach and La'el are injured.
7's too high for me. 10 is like jump off a cliff.
I'm gonna say 6.
6. Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna say 6 again. And you never want to overreact too much. They've played well way more often than they haven't.
Right.
Yeah, and Su'a-Filo should be able to help.
Well, it's hard to say you have all these concerns when you see the level of talent all along the offensive line, and you know that this is more than likely just maybe like a bump in the road. This isn't something that's concerning for me for the rest of the season because you know what they're all capable of. Okay,
so let me play devil's advocate with that. There have been 2 really good defenses that they've played this year. Both those instances, they didn't win the battle. Does that concern you more when you're talking about this team if they can win the division and get into the playoffs, playing some of that caliber of talent in the playoffs?
I'm going to speak for the fans listening right now and say, playoffs? Like, let's string together some good results before we worry about what that means.
Well, but the one thing we do know about this team, they can win in the NFC East.
Yeah.
And if they keep winning in the NFC East, they're going to find themselves in the playoffs. So it's true. If they win their next 2 games in the NFC East, I have a hard time thinking that Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is just as schizophrenic as the Cowboys right now.
They could theoretically go 6-0 in the East and finish 7-9. So I'm not willing to concede that.
All right.
Their only other win outside the division is Miami.
My thought
they have not beaten a good team.
Got it. But my thought is if they go 7-9. Somehow Philly's going to end up being 7-9 or less because once again, those 2 teams they're playing the same kind of football right now.
They beat Philly.
Is Philly good?
Well, then
that's my point.
You're making the point. Then
do y'all know?
So you still will win the division, right?
Y'all know who Philly has to end the year, right?
If they're not a good team,
but they're playing. They got 2 Giants games, a Redskins game, a Dolphins game,
but that's my point. Is if they play like the Cowboys, which to this point they've been up and down, then it may not depend on the caliber of their opponent. They may lose some games that right now you're looking at like they can't lose that.
Okay. Philly could lose to the Giants.
Absolutely.
Anybody can lose to anybody.
Right.
I mean, of course.
But the whole point is, are you more concerned about these better teams? Because that's where the Cowboys offensive line can bully some other teams, and they have. When it comes to some of these better lines, they've not gotten the better end of that.
I mean, last night's game was a good example. I mean, there are two good football teams going back and forth, and it came down to plays at the end of the game. And I think the Vikings game is very similar. I mean, yeah, it sucks to be 5-4, not 6-3, because seems like a really big difference.
It does.
But if they make a play, and I'm just saying, I know that's a big if, but I mean, they're right there, win the game. We're not even talking about all these numbers we're about to throw out aren't all because of a one play here and there. I mean, that was a very good 2 good football teams, I think, that are playing in that game. The Vikings won the game. They were a little bit better, but I don't think the Cowboys can compete with anyone, but they will lose to anyone if they don't play well and they're injured. So I don't think it's a panic button situation. They can get in here and they can be better than Philly.
All right, let's talk about the tight ends. Jason Witten, Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz. What's your level of concern there?
I don't know know about concern. It's just, I mean, even yesterday, Garrett was asked why they're not using Jarwin more when he seems to be playing well when he gets the opportunities, and it's Witten is just that good. And it almost kind of reminds me of.
Wait, he said that? Did he say Witten is just that good? Or are you saying that?
No, I mean, paraphrasing what he said. I mean,
Okay.
Jason Witten is Jason Witten.
Right,
and
right.
You can only play so many personal
Good football
packages.
player
And
for a long time.
it almost kind of reminds me of like Tony Pollard of you're not getting the opportunities that you need.
I'm going to disagree with you there because, Zeke has been the best running back in the league for the last few years. He wasn't the other night, obviously, but we know what Zeke is. And but Witten is not that guy anymore, And so
No, I agree with you. I would like to
Yeah.
see more Jarwin. I was just saying what Garrett said.
I know.
But
And the Garrett's,
Jarwin seems to.
wham the nose and all the stuff. I mean, Garrett, we saw it at the press conference where, he was tearing up and all that. That's his guy. But it's a tough situation because it's not like Jarwin is great at everything. He's just a more athletic tight end than Witten. Yeah.
Faster.
So is Schultz. But that doesn't mean Schultz needs to play.
You'd be surprised to hear this, but I'm not going to play by the rules on this particular one because. And listen, I'm wrong all the time. Like I'm always wrong. I thought they were going to beat the Vikings. Definitely thought they were going to beat the Jets. A lot of stuff I say is wrong. But the minute Jason Witten unretired, I called this from a million miles away. I was like, tight end will be a problem spot. Jason Witten will be Jason Witten. It probably won't be good enough, but he's going to command a certain amount of snaps and attention that you're not going to get better from your younger guys while he's here. And you're not going to draft a guy because you don't know how long Jason Witten's going to be around. I don't think it's killing this team. In the grand scheme of problems, you're going to say something else that scares me way more than tight end, but it's just a subpar position right now, and there's nothing they can do about it right now. And it just is what it is.
That's kind of my take on it is you got so many things that you can put in the priorities as far as problems. This is so far down the list for me that my level of concern on the tight ends is really, really small because I'll put it like this. I don't think that anything the tight ends did or didn't do in this last game won or would have won or ended up losing this game for the Cowboys. I don't think the tight ends were part of my equation, at least on why they lost.
Okay, but maybe someone needs to tell Dak. Because, after the Jets game, Dak's like, I'm going to throw it to the Hall of Fame tight end. I get that. Same with this last game, the Vikings, third down, critical play. He's not winning those plays. He's not winning those 50-50 balls where it's fighting with a defensive back or a linebacker. He's not that guy that's making that play. He's not getting those pass interference calls. So I don't know if it's your best option, especially with critical, pivotal plays in the game when the game's on the line. He's like, well, I'm just going to throw it to the GOAT. Well,
but if he's throwing it to him, because I don't think he's just throwing it just blindly. I think he's throwing it to him because he sees, hey, maybe he's in man coverage. Maybe he is.
That's not what he said, though. What he said is, I'm going to take the GOAT every time, and I don't know if that's the right.
Do you really think he's saying, I don't care. When I come out of the huddle, I don't care what I see, I'm throwing it to Jason Witten. I don't think that's what he's saying.
I just think they're in a unique spot and not in a good way. Because, what did we just talk about? Connor Williams was the 50th overall pick, and we're like, well, you know what? So what? This is the NFL. If we got to move him to swing tackle next year, that's what we're going to do. That Jason Witten's not going to be your third tight end. He's not here to play 6 snaps and be on special teams. It's just not going to happen. Right. And that doesn't mean, and I don't have his snap count in front of me. I bet it's not 99%. You pointed out he wasn't on the field for the do or die drive. But he's still going to command a certain amount of snaps, attention, respect, all that stuff. And it just is what it is.
As we know, they have 2 tight ends on the field as much as they do anything else. This year they use 2 tight ends quite a bit. And there are a lot of times, just like in that last drive, in games where they only have 1 tight end and Jason's not in there. They have Blake Jarwin in the game. As a matter of fact, there was one series this last game where they had 2 tight ends and Jason wasn't on the field. So I think they're moving it around. Jason's the starter and has more snaps than anybody else. I don't think it's a situation where they're not using Blake Jarwin. I think they're using him fine. I just think it's just one of those things where Jason just happens to have more snaps. All right, let's move on. Let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk about the running back position. We'll talk about the running offense and particularly the running defense. We'll do that when we come right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
I'm Jay Novacek, former tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the day, I was the guy who always got the tough yards, and that's why I run with John Deere today. In fact, I have a John Deere 3025E tractor that can handle any yard work I need to do, even the tough yards way out back. So if you have 1 acre or 1,000, John Deere has the equipment that's just right for you. Visit a John Deere dealer today and run with us. We are the official tractor provider of your Dallas Cowboys.
Whether you're into being a part of this or more into something like this, SeatGeek has the tickets to the events you love. It's the easiest way to find, buy, and sell tickets. Plus, with their Deal Score technology, they'll recommend the best seats in the house at the best value. So the next time you're craving this,
Ready? Blue 20.
download the SeatGeek app and let's go. SeatGeek.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
Ready? Okay. Give me an S. S. Give me an O. O. Give me an S. S. Give me an O. O. What's that spell?
So.
Are we gonna win?
Not if we play like we cheered.
Just okay is not okay. Whether it's cheerleaders or your wireless network, AT&T is America's best wireless network. Best network based on GWS One score September 2019.
Back to the break.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We're talking about levels of concern. We've talked about the offensive line and the tight end position. Let's talk about the running back, Ezekiel Elliott. I've seen some, I don't know, I don't even want to characterize it, but I've seen some tweets that have been floating around over the last day that have been questioning Zeke's effectiveness, looking at these games where they've had struggles trying to run the ball. Do you guys see anything in Zeke that gives you a level of concern? I mean, and I'm talking about this separate from the offensive line, just Zeke as a runner. Are you at all concerned about him and what he's doing at the running back position?
A little bit, yeah, because you want him to be a little bit more of an explosive player because that's how you get those big yards. That's how you want the guy that's paid as one of the best in the league to kind of every once in a while get a 25, 35, 50-yard run, have that in his arsenal. I'm not saying he doesn't have it, but most of his big plays in his career have been screens. Now, that's on the Cowboys for not, running one because I think that they saw it once or twice or 15 times. Dalvin Cook did it, so you'd think they could try it. But the explosive plays to me are becoming a little bit of a problem.
The what? I'm sorry?
The lack of explosive plays out of Zeke are a little bit of a problem.
I think he has one run of 20 or more yards this season.
I mean, the longest rush of the season is Dak against the Redskins, 42 yards.
I'm almost positive he's got a boatload of 12 to 15-yard runs, and I've said before that'll do the trick more often than not. Like Zeke himself, I'm probably at like a 2.5 or a 3. I mean, he 300-yard games in a row before that. He's a workhorse. He fights through contact. He does all that stuff. But just, I don't know, go flip on that tape of Dalvin Cook and just like you weren't here yesterday, but like you're holding your breath when he hits the hole because you're like, this could be 6 yards, this could be 25 yards, this could go to the house.
Yep.
And you haven't felt that way often watching Zeke. And it's not to say he hasn't been good or he hasn't been productive, but consider the price tag, and you have to now that it's there. That's you would like to see more of that. But most of my concern with that is more about the way he's being used. Like you can also flip on the tape and watch Zeke run into some of these boxes of 5 guys trying to block 6 or 7 guys and say, well, what is he really supposed to do? Much like the Saints game. Is Zeke not getting yards because he's not good? No, Zeke is getting yards because there's unblocked tacklers in the box bringing him down. And then what Nick just said, they just refuse to use him creatively in the passing game. And at this point, I've given up hope that they ever will. And that's like a 9. That's a 9. and stubbornly running him into brick walls is like an 8. But I do not put that on Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think that's his fault.
He's still strong. He's still grinding and making those tough runs and breaking tackles. It's just, I agree. I'm not sure why we haven't seen those explosive plays. We talked about when we play the Giants. I mean, Saquon is always good for at least one every time, we play him. And I'm just wondering why we haven't seen those from Zeke yet. And again, too, with Dave, I don't know why they don't throw it to him more. He's proven he can be just as consistent getting the ball in the air.
Yeah, I'll say my paint by numbers thing for the millionth time, but like the way the Cowboys play it, they're like, okay, here comes our screen. We're gonna fake the jet sweep, fake the play action. Dak's gonna look left, turn right, and throw it to Zeke. And all right, we got our screen. We did our screen for the night.
We're done.
We're good. And the Vikings are over here like, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it that way. Oh, here comes another screen pass. Here we go again. We're going to do it coming out of this look. We're going to do it coming out of that look. And the Cowboys just aren't like that. And Kellen Moore is obviously doing a good job. They have the best offense in the league. But I just think they could be more creative across a bunch of different fronts.
The interesting part about this is you talked about the money. Christian McCaffrey has not reached his second deal, correct?
Nope.
All right, so check this out. Top 5 rushers in the league right now. Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Josh Jacobs. All young guys, all still on their first contracts. If you go beyond that, Zeke is at 6, but then you got Chris Carson, you got Marlon Mack, you got Derrick Henry, Carlos Hyde, Lamar Jackson, funny, Kenyon Drake, Mark Ingram, Phillip. Like, you start going down this list, and it is the whole argument that was being made before the deal with Zeke of, do you ever, and I've heard people make this argument, and I think it's a valid argument, do you ever go big on a second contract on a running back in today's NFL, where you look at this, and this is not uncommon, that you look at the top rushers in the league, and they tend to be young guys on first deals.
Yep.
Does this change? Are you looking at this, and do you guys have any questions now about whether it was a good idea to make the decision to pay him the amount of money that they ended up paying him?
Yeah, I mean, you can go back and now and make that argument, but I don't think it was a bad idea. I think we were there in training camp. We kind of knew what this team was about, what they needed, and I think Zeke is the guy that he has been the guy that kind of makes it all go. So, Dak hasn't. This was one of the few games that we've really seen Dak really play a great game without having him out there. I guess you could say the Giants from last year, but against a much better team. Mm-hmm. And Dak's kind of been the guy that's needed Zeke. And let's be honest, he still had Zeke. I mean, he had Zeke in that game. Like, he wasn't rushing for a lot, but he was there, and the Vikings certainly knew he was there. So I think Zeke's presence certainly helped Dak in that game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I think we went into this with our eyes open. Like, none of that should be surprising to you if you pay close attention to the NFL. And I was like, it's scary to give that much money to a running back, but if there's a guy that I would give it to, it's Zeke, XYZ, his age, his durability, his talent, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, it hurts to hear that, but you shouldn't be surprised. Like, it shouldn't have taken to. No, and I'm not talking to you.
Yeah,
speaking rhetorically.
Right.
So, like I said, it kind of stings to hear that, but yeah, I agree with Nick. I mean, the Vikings were so obviously keyed on Zeke, and it's the coach's fault, in my opinion, that they were still focusing that much on the run, even late in the game. And the Cowboys did adjust to throw more, but I think they could have done more.
I think,
yeah, and I agree. Like, that was one of Dak's first games where he was really able to carry that load on his own, and they still didn't win. They could have, which hasn't always been the case when Zeke has had a bad day, but they didn't. And so Dak will hopefully continue to grow into that guy. I don't know if he's ready to be that guy week in and week out yet, and so I still don't have a problem with it, even if it does kind of sting to hear those stats.
Yeah, the part that's worrisome for me is if you go back and watch the game, there were so many plays where it wasn't even a situation where the Vikings were just saying, or at least in the situations I'm talking about, where the Vikings were saying, we're going to put both safeties down in the box and we are committed to stopping Zeke. Like, these are situations where what the defense was dedicating to stop the run was beatable. And especially when you consider the fact of how much money and how many first-round draft picks have been used across that offensive line and at the running back position, you're like, they should be able to beat a front that says run against this front. And I know they weren't. I get all that. But that's the part that's worrisome to me is the guys that you've really invested in to say 3rd and 2, we feel like we should be able to run against a 4-man front and 6 men in the box. And you can't. You get a 2-yard loss, right? That's where I think there's a disconnect and a problem.
Danny, use the Jell-O analogy that Jerry.
I loved that.
Yeah,
it was so great. On 105.3 The Fan this morning, Jerry was saying he was asked if he has any concerns. I guess more about Cowboys' run defense was I think what the specific question was. And his analogy, he's great at analogies. He said it's like holding Jell-O in your hands. As soon as it starts to you think you're good, it's not seeping through your middle fingers anymore. It starts overflowing on the edges. So as soon as you think you're good and comfortable in one aspect of your game, something else kind of grabs your attention.
Which the reason I asked you to bring that up is it's very fitting in that regard because whether it's injuries, whether it's the other talent in the NFL, whatever you want to chalk it up to, it's rare when you can just line up and out-talent another NFL team. And it takes coaching to compensate for that, in my opinion. The 49ers, I believe, had their starting tackles for the first time in a month and a half last night. Which,
and they lost.
Ironically, they lost.
Right.
But they also got to 8-0 without their starting tackles.
Right.
Can you imagine that happening here?
No.
I can't.
But that also tells you, you invest so much in a particular area of your team, and when that part of the team is just performing like all these other teams that don't invest that in, it makes you wonder, is it a bad investment, right?
No, that's my, yes, you spend all this money on the O-line, but Tyron's, his injury list is like a CVS receipt, and Lyle's been dealing with something. Travis is coming back from a sickness that knocked him out all year, and on and on and on and on. And it's unrealistic to be like, well, we spent first-round picks on these guys for years and years, so we can just line up and run over whoever we want to. You got to be more creative than that.
All right,
I was going to say, you look at the teams, some of who they lost to, and you think if the Cowboys were dealing with those injuries, could they have won games? Right? The Saints didn't have Breeze. If we didn't have Dak, right? Cooper Rush.
Yeah.
Packers didn't have Devontae Adams. We've seen how this Cowboys team performs without Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
It's just concerning.
Same thing with the Vikings and Thielen.
You see the depth, and then when they're put in the situation to use their backups, doesn't always pan out the way it should.
All right, we're going to take our final break. We will come back. We'll talk about the run defense. We'll talk about the linebackers. And I want to talk about special teams a little bit as well. We'll get levels of concern on all those players when we come back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Ready? Okay. Give me an S. S. Give me an O. O. Give me an S. S. Give me an O. O. What's that spell?
So.
Are we gonna win?
Not if we play like we cheered.
Just okay is not okay. Whether it's cheerleaders or your wireless network, AT&T is America's best wireless network. Best network based on GWS One score September 2019.
It's time for tailgating with the OtterBox boys.
The OtterBox that builds those crazy protective phone cases?
Yup, and now they're changing the side dish game with the OtterBox Trooper Soft Cooler. Lightweight, mobile, and leak-proof, Trooper is perfect for blitzing a crowded parking lot with a Frito pie.
Amazing. Hey, you think I could fit my 7-layer salmon salad into the Trooper cooler?
Yup, but please don't.
And that's been Tailgating with the OtterBox boys. Learn more about the Trooper Soft Coolers at OtterBox.com.
Whether you're into being a part of this or more into something like this, SeatGeek has the tickets to the events you love. It's the easiest way to find, buy, and sell tickets. Plus, with their Deal Score technology, they'll recommend the best seats in the house at the best value. So the next time you're craving this,
Hey! Blue 20!
download the SeatGeek app and let's go. SeatGeek.
Hey Cowboys Nation, this season when the Cowboys win, you get to experience the sweet taste of victory because if the Cowboys win, the next day Dunkin' is offering a free medium hot or iced coffee. So don't just celebrate the Cowboys' success from the sidelines, head to Dunkin' and treat yourself to real victory because this season Cowboys fans aren't only winning on game day, they're winning the next day too with a free medium coffee. Cowboys Nation runs on Dunkin'. Excludes cold brew. Limit 1 per guest. Participation may vary. Limited time offer.
Back to the break.
It's almost Christmas time.
It is.
It's getting there.
Beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Feels like it around here for sure. All right, Cowboys will host their third annual Christmas at the Star, presented by Albertsons and Tom Thumb from November 22nd through December 21st, taking place at the Star in Frisco. It's a family-friendly events through the holiday season, including the Christmas Spectacular. It's an opportunity to take a photo with Santa Claus. They've upgraded there this year. And for more information, visit thestarinfrisco.com.
It's an awesome show.
Is
Christmas
it?
Spectacular. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Are you a part of it like you were last weekend at the Madden?
No. I went last year as a fan.
Awesome. So November 22nd through December 21st.
Every Friday, Saturday.
Bundle up, because if it's anything like it is right now, it should be cool out there.
A little bit.
You never know. It could be hot.
You looking forward to Chicago?
Yeah, it'd be fun. Detroit seems like it's going to be pretty cool. I know it's
we'll be
indoor
indoors.
game.
It will be indoors, so it's a little different. But
famous last words, but like, I don't know, Chicago probably won't be any colder than it was when I woke up in Dallas this morning.
It's the Windy City day.
I was about to say, the wind changes things a little bit. Although this morning in Dallas, the wind chill was 10 degrees. It was
brutal.
It was pretty cold.
All right, we're getting.
All right, let's get back in. Let's talk some run defense. This last game, that one series is what I just have in my mind. Because to be honest with you, and we even mentioned in the press box, Nick, early in the game, they were actually doing a pretty good job of stopping the run. Their problems were in the screen game. Like, they were having a hard time stopping the screen game. But as far as the run was concerned, they were doing a pretty good job. And then you get to that series, and basically Minnesota just lined up and said, we're going to run the ball. You're not going to stop us. And the Cowboys had no answers.
Yeah,
it was very old school.
Yeah, and you can say what you want about Tony Pollard. He is a change of pace back, but Minnesota does it differently. That when they bring a guy in, they bring a guy that's even bigger and more pissed off than Dalvin Cook, and he runs that way, and you don't really know the difference of these two guys. And it was an advantage for them. Not to say that the Cowboys are doing it in another way, but they were able to just interchange them within a drive and keep it going, keep it pounding, and it was very impressive to see. For that end, it wasn't impressive to see the linebackers and defensive linemen.
Isn't this the same thing we've been saying all season? Tackling.
Yeah, I mean, tackling was definitely a problem in this game.
Run defense has been at least somewhat of a concern sporadically throughout the season at times.
Yep.
Like we were getting better at one point, and
can anybody pinpoint what the deal is here? Because I'm way up there, close to 10 with the defense.
I will say this: anytime a team is getting run on the way the Cowboys got run on in the second half in that game, my first set of attention goes to the linebackers. And I think there were a number of times in that game where linebackers overran plays, where linebackers slipped and fell, where linebackers had a guy. Like, they had him, and he got away, and he's running. And so for me, the number one job of a linebacker is make the tackle. Diagnose the play, get there, and make the tackle. And I don't think enough in that second half of that game the linebackers were diagnosing the play, getting there, and making the tackle. That also means sometimes you got to run through blocks. That means sometimes you got to know enough about what's coming to not get in a bad position to get blocked. Didn't look like often enough the linebackers were doing that in this game.
It didn't seem like anybody was really doing it. DeMarcus Lawrence played pretty well. What else is new? But yeah, not being able to get off blocks, not diagnosing plays, tackling. I think I read the Vikings had 144 yards after contact.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's incredible in all the wrong ways.
Yeah.
So maybe they were diagnosing plays. Maybe they were diagnosing plays well, right?
Tackling it all season.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been all season.
I think consistently, I think there's been issues tackling throughout the season.
I get it confused with Texas football sometimes, so I don't know. It's hard for me to say for the whole year.
Please don't bring up college football with Dave in the room.
I think.
Oh yeah, right.
We don't have to go there.
The guy that's really hard to figure out here is when you just watch him play is Jalen Smith. I mean, is he good? Does he make a lot of plays? He makes some. He tells you about it when he does. And you think, well, he's around the ball. He's making plays. He doesn't always make great plays, though. He misses a lot, too. And Jalen is very similar to this team in that, you see the good. You see some of the bad. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't add up like you'd want it to, 13 tackles, but it just seems kind of hollow.
Would it be fair, and I don't have them all in front of me, obviously, but like most of Jalen's really great plays this season have been as a pass rusher, really, haven't they? I'm thinking Saints. I'm thinking he had a sack against the Giants, I believe.
Yeah.
I
don't think he's a great rusher, though.
I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm saying most of his good plays have been just screaming downfield, trying to which, I mean, that's nice, but that's not what I want from my linebackers. I want them using their instincts to get side to side and sniff stuff out before it gets started. I mean, that's what you're there to do.
Yeah, and I think if we're talking about this holistically, I don't think there's a linebacker among those top three that have consistently done that this year. And to be honest with you, the one I'm probably most disappointed in, and again, it's because of expectations, is Leighton. My thoughts after last year was that Leighton's going to be a bad in this league. He was going to be a really, really great linebacker. And so my expectation is sideline to sideline. I think about that Houston game and the way they run down that play on the sideline and stop the quarterback cold in his tracks, and there is nothing that he gets out of the play. How often have we seen that this year? Yeah. Like, that's the part that I'm really concerned about is they're just not flowing sideline to sideline. They're not diagnosing a play and making tackles for losses where they just basically shoot through gaps. They're not doing any of that stuff, and so there's not the big plays coming from them. They're not even making the kind of plays where receiver catches the ball in the middle of the field, linebacker comes up and dislodges the ball. Those kind of, what kind of plays are they making right now? And I just don't see a lot of those splash plays from the linebacking crew.
Sorry, Danny.
I would say, is Leighton, would you even consider him healthy?
No.
Right?
What sucks is, it puts us in a bad spot. Not that I expect anybody to have sympathy, but Leighton's got a stinger. It was bad enough that it kept him out the game after the bye week. So clearly something pretty nasty to sideline him for that long. Then he's clearly gimpy in this Vikings game. He's limping. You could see it with your own eyes. He runs off the field. He goes to the locker room without his helmet, comes back, gets back in, finishes the game. And so for all intents and purposes, he's healthy. If you're healthy enough to be out there, then you're healthy enough for me to critique your level of play. But probably not in reality,
But how many guys on the field are like that?
Absolutely.
That's the thing about football is if you're out there playing, you're probably playing with an injury. Yeah. And it's just a matter of how much pain tolerance can you handle.
But And I don't know. We even asked Jason Garrett about it specifically yesterday. We were like, did he come out of that game okay? And Jason said yes. So I'm going to take him at his word on that, even if it's probably not 100% the truth. But if he's, and again, pure conjecture on my part, I don't know, I'm speculating, but if he's got a mild groin strain, no wonder he's not doing that type of stuff, But if you're healthy enough to be out there, then I have to critique what I see.
I think the big difference is at the linebacker position. I think there's a lot of guys in the league that make tackles, especially since that's a stat that teams keep to themselves, and it changes with everybody who's grading those players. But I think Leighton made the Pro Bowl last year because he had interceptions. He had a couple in a row. He had a couple against one on Monday night or Sunday night, and then the next week as well. And I think that's right when you're really voting. And this guy's a stud, and now he's making other plays. But I don't know. I think that's the big difference here. He hasn't had those turnovers.
I disagree with you, and I think you're right. Interceptions are splash plays, and they stand out, and they run on SportsCenter. But just week after week last year, he's knifing back into the backfield, and if he had been playing like he was last year, half of those pitches to Dalvin Cook, they're going for -1, 0, or 1 because Leighton Vander Esch is getting through 2 blocks and getting there before he can get going. He did it. He made a huge play against Philly on the road last year where he did exactly that, and he did that reliably. They did it against Houston. They wound up losing that game, but they both were doing stuff like that, and you just don't see it. You remember Leighton, I think he did it once in this game, and he's done it a few other times, and it stands out because it happens so rarely where you're like, whoa, there's the Leighton that I remember from last year.
How many games did he miss last year, to start the year? How many?
He didn't. 4? Well, he wasn't starting until week 4 or 5. But he didn't miss any games.
No, he didn't miss any games. He's on pace to get way more tackles this year. Now I understand that he didn't play. It wasn't starting a lot in the first few games, but I mean, I think he's still making plays. I really do. I think he's making plays. I just don't know if he's making these splash plays, especially the turnovers. I've seen some tackles, but where he's chasing them down and all that, but I guess they haven't. I don't know. Let's ask Corey Miller. How many times
are we using the howl?
Yeah,
it's not very often.
He
And actually,
runs the big board up there. How many times are they hitting the howl? I heard it once in the game.
And I want to say this last game when he did it, it was like it was a play that I was kind of like a little nondescript. Like I didn't think of it as a great play, but he made a tackle.
We swipe on 6-yard runs. So.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know. All right, real quick, we don't have much time left. I really quickly wanted to bring up special teams because I want to talk about Brett Maher. Is there any level of concern with him?
Yeah.
I don't personally put. Okay, go ahead.
Every time he kicks.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Every time he kicks, there's a concern.
Yeah,
there is. I don't know if he's going to make it. I don't know if he's going to make it,
including extra points.
I don't know if he's going to make it. I was really wondering if they make that touchdown at the end of the game, was he going to make it?
Yeah.
It would I just thought it was going to come down to either Maher or Bailey or both or whatever, but it didn't. It almost did.
Almost did.
That's what's concerning. I get that they know he can make those really long kicks, 45, 50-yarders, but does that mean that you have to put him in multiple situations like that every game?
Did you guys talk about that yesterday?
Yeah. Okay, it's too much faith. Well,
but yes,
I've seen
those extra points.
I've seen him do it. Cool, but
I just which he's seen him do it. He also knows that he's missed.
Yeah.
He's 50% this year, which 50 plus.
But so he threw him out there for the 57-yarder, and then 20 minutes later had an opportunity at the same kick and didn't want to do it. Right. It's like, but you had all this confidence in him. And so just watching him miss one kick changed all of that, even though you've seen him miss plenty of times in your life?
Yeah, I can't fathom why you would make the decision, I'm going to take a 50-50 shot at something, at anything. I'm going to take a 50-50 shot at something that early in the game where it's not necessary. Like, you do that going into a half when you don't have any more time. You do that at the end of a game, maybe late in the game when you just feel like, hey, we've been struggling all game to get into position to even get a score. We got to get something here. Then maybe you take a shot. It was the first series of the game. I didn't understand the point of it. I really didn't understand the point of it.
Is that going to give you a boost to go up 3-0?
Right.
Maybe help with those slow starts. Well, I don't know, mentally.
Look at the percentages. What's the percentage Chris Jones is going to put the ball at the 10-yard line? Probably like 75%. That's what he does. He knows how to do that. And then what's the percent that the Vikings are going to go 90? I mean, I don't know.
It's smaller than 50%.
Who do you?
I don't know.
Small. They did it on the next series, though. Anyway, go ahead.
Who do you implicitly trust on this team? Implicitly, like it's a 0. You got a 0 since we're talking about how concerned you are. I can think of a few.
LP.
All right.
I was about to say, I'm having a hard time coming up with a single one other than maybe Amari.
I trust him.
4 for me. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just a homer.
Yeah, but I think 4 has shown us that at times, he's had some games where you're kind of like,
but
even there,
even when he
not really. Not this year.
I'm thinking
in the losses,
that's true.
He's played
not this
well.
year. You're right. And so it may be past history that kind of clouds that for me a little bit.
He didn't play great against the Packers. He was forcing a little bit, even though he went for 450. But I mean, he was
he made
a little.
That's my point. Even the bad games. I mean, he threw a pick on the first play of the Giants game and wasn't phased.
What about 90?
4, 19, and 90.
I'm good with you on 90.
And I'll even, you know what? I'll probably throw in 31. Maybe that's just more.
He's been really good this year.
I think that's now the reason you say that. I think is just more about the struggles all over the rest of the secondary.
Maybe
he's not getting a ton of help, but I think he's played really well.
You know what I don't know? I don't know if the reason why we're seeing what we're seeing is because teams think, why even mess with 31 when we could just go to the other side? And so I wonder, is Byron really that good? Or is it a situation where teams just are like, I don't really want to deal with that if I can go over here? This is a better match.
Guess what? That counts as being good. If teams don't even want to mess with you because...
Yeah, it's that
counts.
Kind of, but the flip side of that, if the flip side of that is the more important part, which is the guy on the other side a guarantee, then it doesn't matter necessarily how good that guy is over there. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Byron. All I'm saying is I don't know if teams are just so heavily focused on the matchup of whoever's with Cheeto that they just say that's a better matchup rather than it being about
That's on the
Byron.
scheme then. That's on Chris Richard. That's on those guys. Because I'm telling you, I know football's changed a lot over the years, but I've seen Larry Brown get 9 interceptions one year and win a Super Bowl MVP, not because he was really that good. He was opportunistic. The other guy was the best corner to ever play.
Got
so
it.
work on your defense to make that work. If Byron is that good and Cheeto is not, then why can't you give him more help and play that way, cheat that way, or give him some help? That's on the scheme. If that's what's happening, quit just saying one guy over here, and God, I hope they both win.
You think that's what they're doing? No, I mean, I think Cheeto's getting some help. I mean, he's got safety over the top. A lot of times we see the safety running into the screen as the completion's being made. So I think a safety's there. Maybe I don't know. I don't think that they're benefiting from the fact that 31's not doing anything. Like, he's not giving up anything. Yeah,
they need to benefit from that and maybe give him more help.
My point was just to say it's not a long list.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
And for a team with NFC championship aspirations at the start of the season, that's not great.
What I don't know is if you went around all the teams in the NFL, is it the same thing? Like who they implicitly trust is still just a handful of guys, and everybody else just kind of takes their moments when they're really, really good. And the Cowboys aren't getting those other guys to step up and have those really, really good games just on a rotation. You know what I'm saying?
I trust Zach Martin.
I agree with you. His injuries, I feel like, have hurt him this year.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if you're talking about the offensive line, and you could say, well, they didn't have a good game because they didn't run the ball as well as you wanted them to, but they still threw for, they had 455 yards. I mean, that's a lot of yards. So they were, in one sack, and Dak could have been 3 or 4 if he did a nice job of getting out of it. But they did a good job in certain aspects. They didn't move the ball up and down the field. It's hard to just say the offensive line was terrible. Their short yardage situations weren't good. And remember during the game when they got down to the 10-yard line, I think I even said to you or Rob, I said, okay, that's good, but this is where it gets really tough. It's just hard to score right in here at the 10, and that's when we started dissecting all these touchdowns. When you get inside the red zone, they're not as good. That's been a problem for a long time. They don't push the pile. So maybe Suafilo can help there.
All right, we're going to take that's in the show.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're out of breaks.
We will be back tomorrow.
We're on a 23.5-hour break.
There you go. For Nick Eatman, Dave Hellman, and Danny Sarek, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.